This is the story of how a joint military strike changed the Middle East forever, killing Iran's supreme leader and plunging the region into unprecedented chaos. These are the 72 hours that began with Operation Epic Fury and ended with celebrations in Iranian streets and missiles falling across 6 nations. On February 28, 2026, at exactly 8:10 a.m. Iranian time, Israeli jets dropped 30 bombs on Ali Khamenei's residential compound in what officials described as a massive, wildly bold daytime attack. The 86-year-old supreme leader, who had ruled Iran with an iron fist for 37 years, was killed instantly while working in his office. By March 1st, Iranian state media confirmed what many thought impossible: the man who had survived an assassination attempt in 1981 and countless threats since was dead. The targeted killing echoed the January 2020 assassination of Qasem Soleimani, establishing a new precedent for eliminating Iran's top leadership. The operation had been brewing for weeks. Just 3 weeks earlier, Iran had experienced its bloodiest crackdown in modern history. Protests that began over record inflation and food prices had spiraled into a nationwide uprising against the Islamic Republic, reminiscent of the woman life freedom movement that had challenged the regime since 2022. Ali Larijani, secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, had orchestrated massacres that left at least 7,000 protesters dead, according to human rights activists in Iran, though some estimates put the toll as high as 32,000. On January 17th, Khamenei himself had admitted several thousand had been killed. The irony was stark. Just hours before the strike, there had been hope for peace. On February 27th, Oman's foreign minister announced a breakthrough in nuclear negotiations, saying Iran had agreed to never stockpile enriched uranium again. Those talks, held in Moscow on February 6th, represented the closest the two nations had come to agreement since the collapse of the JCPOA nuclear deal in 2018. Less than 24 hours later, that diplomatic progress was obliterated by American and Israeli bombs. The coordinated assault was unprecedented in its scope and brutality. Operation Roaring Lion, as Israel called it, and Epic Fury, the American codename, targeted not just Khamenei but the entire power structure of the Islamic Republic. Israeli aircraft dropped over 1,200 munitions across 24 of Iran's 31 provinces. The strikes killed Khamenei's daughter, son-in-law, and grandson, though intelligence suggests his sons, Mojtaba Khamenei, long considered a potential successor, survived. CBS News reported that 40 Iranian officials died in the initial wave alone, but it was the strike on a girls' school in Menab that would haunt the operation's legacy. At 10 a.m. Iranian time, just as parents were dropping their children off for Saturday classes, American missiles struck the building. The local prosecutor confirmed 148 people died and 95 were injured, most of them schoolgirls between 7 and 12 years old. Around 170 students had been present when the bombs fell. The school was located near an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps naval base in the strategically vital Strait of Hormuz region, making it what military strategists coldly term collateral damage. Former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Trump supporter, captured the horror in a post on X. "I did not campaign for this. I did not donate money for this. I did not vote for this." The Washington Post reported no independent confirmation of the death toll, but verified footage showed the school's complete destruction. Iran's response was swift and devastating. Within hours, 137 missiles and 209 drones were streaking across the Persian Gulf toward the UAE. But Iran cast its net wider, targeting U.S. military bases in Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. The USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, operating in the region, became a primary target as Iranian missiles sought to neutralize American naval power. On March 1st, an Iranian missile struck a synagogue and residential buildings in Beit Shemesh, killing 9 Israelis and injuring 49 others. The human cost mounted rapidly. Preliminary figures showed 555 dead in Iran, at least 10 inches Israel, 4 U.S. soldiers killed, and 5 dead in Gulf states. The U.S. military confirmed it had sunk an Iranian Jamaran-class corvette. President Trump, posting on Truth Social, declared there would likely be more American casualties. He wasn't wrong. 3 more U.S. service members died as the conflict expanded, marking the first American combat deaths since the operation began. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of Khamenei's death was the reaction inside Iran itself. As news broke, Iranians poured into the streets, not to mourn but to celebrate. An internet blackout that reduced national connectivity to just 4% of normal levels couldn't silence the joy spreading across the nation. Videos circulated from Isfahan, Karaj, Kermanshah, Qazvin, Senandaj, Shiraz, and Izeh showing people dancing and cheering. Security forces deployed to prevent uprising, opening fire on some celebrants, but the joy was unmistakable. In southern Iran, crowds toppled a monument dedicated to the Islamic Republic's founder, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. The symbolism was powerful. The revolution that began in 1979 was finally being rejected by its own people. Trump's reaction was characteristically direct. Khamenei, one of the most evil people in history, is dead. This is not only justice for the people of Iran, but for all great Americans, and those people from many countries throughout the world that have been killed or mutilated by Khamenei and his gang of bloodthirsty thugs. Yet the operation faced significant criticism. Senator Mark Warner, the top Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, said he'd seen no intelligence suggesting Iran was planning a preemptive strike, undermining the administration's justification. A Reuters Ipsos poll showed only 27% of Americans approved of the strikes, while 43% disapproved. The power vacuum in Tehran created immediate uncertainty. Unlike 1989, when Khamenei himself was chosen as Khamenei's successor within 24 hours through the Assembly of Experts constitutional process, the ongoing bombardment made succession impossible. An interim leadership council was hastily formed, including Assembly of Experts member Ali Reza Arafi, President Masoud Pezeshkian, and Chief Justice Gholam Hossein Mohseni EJ. But with bombs still falling, real governance remained elusive. Ali Larijani, Khamenei's closest confidant and the architect of January's massacres, emerged as the most senior surviving official. In a post on X, he vowed Iran would deliver an unforgettable lesson to Israel and the United States. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson was blunt. "This is an unjust war imposed on our nation, and we have no other choice other than fighting against this injustice." The conflict expanded beyond Iran's borders as Hezbollah launched missiles at Israel in revenge for Khamenei's killing. Israel responded with strikes on Beirut and reinforced troops along the Lebanese border. The regional war that analysts had long feared was becoming reality. Opposition groups seized the moment. Mariam Rajavi of the MEK hailed Khamenei's death as the end of religious tyranny. Exiled Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi, son of the last Shah, unilaterally declared the end of the Islamic Republic, though he acknowledged Khamenei's death was not the end and called for continued resistance. The international community watched with alarm. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres warned that the use of force by the United States and Israel against Iran and the subsequent retaliation by Iran across the region undermine international peace and security. Even seemingly unrelated events felt the impact. Iran's Football Federation, despite qualifying for the 2026 World Cup in the U.S., expressed a dim outlook for participation. As the conflict entered its third day on March 2nd, the broader implications became clear. The Council on Foreign Relations noted that taking out Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is not the same as regime change. The Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is the regime. Airstrikes alone, no matter how devastating, cannot topple governments. Iran might emerge battered but not broken, potentially creating a more dangerous adversary. What began as Operation Epic Fury had become something far larger, a regional war with no clear end in sight. The man who had ruled Iran since 1989 was dead, but his death had unleashed forces that neither American precision strikes nor Israeli intelligence could control. In the streets of Iranian cities, people celebrated freedom while missiles fell around them, capturing the complex legacy of 72 hours that changed everything and resolved nothing. The revolution that brought Khamenei to power in 1979 had finally met its match, not in foreign bombs, but in the will of the Iranian people themselves.